Hi everybody, Michelle here with Sew It Online, and this time around we're going to check out the ruffler foot using the Babylock Triumph. Alright, so if you've got the ruffler foot, this is with the packaging, or maybe you bought that wonderful suitcase full of like the 29 different presser feet. This is a really cool ruffling foot because you're going to put two pieces of fabric together, not just a single layer. Now, when you do get your ruffler foot out, make sure you pull out the directions, and it's going to tell you exactly what to set your machine up for. Now, we have it set up for a 4-thread overlock right now, and the nice part is the Triumph has a speed control on it, so you kind of want to slow your machine down if you have a habit of, you know, kind of putting your the pedal to the metal. So your speed control is right here, and we're just going to go about halfway, and it just kind of helps control on the back. And I don't know if this is French or even, I think it's French, but so if you'd like, you can have the directions in French also. But we're going to take a look at these directions right here. It tells you on how to put the fabric in the machine, but I'm going to go over it with you to make it very, very simple. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at this presser foot. It's got the letter G on it, and you're going to notice that it's got 5 notches on here, and so that means that you can use any of the 5 needle placements in your Babylock Triumph. You can go anywhere. You can use any of the needles. Today we're doing a 4-thread overlock, so the needles are actually going to be coming through this section right here. Now you'll notice it's got a gap right here. This is a pretty big foot that goes on to the Triumph. So when you put it on, a lot of people have the habit of not bringing it more toward you. This is the little guide right here to where it's going to snap onto the machine. Now what I want you to look at on the back is this, and let me put it sideways so you can see. See this piece right here? This is a flange. And this flange is going to put some pressure on the bottom fabric so that it will kind of hold on to it a little bit to help it ruffle a little bit. So what's also going to keep the top and the bottom fabric separated. Because what this foot does, it allows you to put 2 pieces of fabric in. The bottom fabric is going to be ruffled and the top piece is not, but it's going to serge the 2 pieces of fabric together. So when I talked about differential feed on a different video, we talked about using the differential feed and moving it all the way up to 2 to get a good ruffle. And what that is basically that front feed dog is going to move twice the distance as the back and pull that fabric in to create some ruffles. Now, when you first get your flange, or your ruffler foot, I'm looking at the flange, when you first get it, you can kind of bend this down just a little bit, just to loosen it up. Just don't do it enough where it snaps off or you're going to have to get another foot. So again, you just kind of wiggle that down just a little bit. Now, when you put it onto the machine, sometimes it's a little hard. You kind of got to press down, and it kind of wants to kind of get stuck on the feed dogs a little bit. But again, just kind of work with it. Push it down, wiggle it in, line it up, drop it down so it's on the machine and it's not going anywhere, okay? So again, I have it set up for a 4-thread overlock. My stitch width is on 7.5. My stitch length is 4 standard, and I am using my blade to cut the fabric, and my stitch selector is on A. So let's take 2 pieces of fabric. Now when I'm ruffling, and if my differential feed is on 2, I would expect that I would get a 2-to-1 ratio, right? Well, not always. And a lot of that is because, 1, we may be holding onto the fabric a little bit too much where it doesn't ruffle. Or 3, or actually 2, the fabric, the weight of the fabric and the weight of the thread will make a direct impact on how much the fabric ruffles. So a denim, which is pretty heavy, may not ruffle as much as maybe you put in like a light organza or a very lightweight cotton or a sheer material. So anyway, let's get this set up so you can see what this can do. So the first one I'm going to do, now my fabric is the same pretty much on both sides, But what you want to do is always put right sides together. So let's assume this is the right side. I'm going to put it under just up to the blade, and I'm going to put my presser foot down. Now I'm going to serge just until I have like 2 stitches in my fabric. And I can kind of see it's already going to start ruffling, okay? Now, this fabric is here. I am purposely showing you with the 2 pieces of fabric that are identical in size. If you were going to be doing this for a project, your bottom piece is, I would always, kind of as a rule of thumb, make sure this bottom piece is twice as long as your top piece, okay? Because remember, the bottom piece is the one that ruffles. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, let me give this, oh, we can do it this side. I'm going to put this one, and I'm going to put it in this channel right here, okay? Now, see this little corner right here? This is where I'm going to look when my fabric is going underneath my presser foot. So I'm going to put it in here, and I'll show you here in a little bit. And I'm going to put my presser foot up, and I'm going to bring my fabric all the way so it goes just to my needles. Then I'm going to put my presser foot down. So you can see I've got 2 pieces. The top one is completely underneath the foot. The bottom one is completely under the foot, and the top one is in that little channel. Now I'm going to take just a couple stitches to anchor in the top fabric. All right, so I know that it's in there. Now if you look at my fabric here, let me turn this a little bit. If you look at my fabric, do you see how one piece is right here and the other piece is going to get cut? This is what we want, okay? So the top piece really doesn't get cut at all. Now, so when I go to guide this, and I'm going to tell you right now, the first time you do this, you're going to like, holy cow, what the heck's going on? You know, and you're going to have it come off and then go back on. Just do some practice strips and you'll get the hang of it, no problem, okay? It's kind of like tapping your head, rubbing your belly kind of thing at the same time. All right, so let's take a look and see what we can do. I'm going to, if you kind of hold this bottom one, this is the one that you don't want any pressure on, you're just guiding. This one here, I'm just going to go just a slightest tug, but I'm going to watch it in that corner right there so that I can get a really good stitch. So I'm going to hold on to this, and if you notice this top one, I'm almost have it kind of a little bit on an angle. All right, and my eye is right there in that corner, not on the needles. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick. If you've done maybe all of this and you're like, oh, I really just didn't get a whole lot of ruffles, what the heck did I do wrong? Here's a little trick. What you can do is do the same thing, look at the same spot, hold your pieces the same way, but this time pull on that top fabric. Now just the top fabric, don't pull on that bottom one. The key here is to try and get the same amount of fabric cut off. Now you're going to notice my bottom fabric is going to end before my top one. And why is that? It's because of the bottom one is ruffling, so it has become shorter. So let's just run this through. And let's see what we got. Okay. So you can see what our stitch looks like. I'm not too worried that my loops are hanging off a little bit because my needle threads are in. This thing isn't going anywhere. So let's take a look and see what it looks like underneath. See how cool those ruffles are? Now, if I was going to, use this, and this is the only piece I was going to make, or if this was going to be the bottom part of maybe the bottom of my t-shirt and it's ruffled, I am going to want to finish off this raw edge before I ruffle. So maybe I want to do a rolled hem on the bottom edge. It's a lot easier doing a rolled hem on a flat piece of fabric than it is on a piece of fabric that's already ruffled. Now the other thing I want you to be aware of, when I turn this around, you're going to see that the seam here automatically wants to go up, okay? And you want to keep it that way. Let it kind of ride the way it wants to. But on the front part, one of the things you can do is run a top stitch right there. If you're making like a little girl skirt or something that's going to be used and washed quite a bit, I recommend doing that top stitch or even the chain stitch on your serger. And it looks really nice. You can do decorative thread, or you can even, you know, use it the same color thread as your fabric. But this piece is ready to go. And the next thing you can do, if you want to add another one to this, then this is your top piece. This is the one that will now be going into your machine on top. So if I had another piece, I could get this one started. Okay. Then I could take this one, put my ruffle in, right in that same channel, putting my presser foot up and getting that fabric all the way up to the needles. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now, the more layers that you add, a little bit more harder it is to kind of keep everything together. So let me get this one started. And it's really so much easier if you can get that fabric all the way up to the needles and then kind of start. All right, I got it anchored. So see how it kind of wants to curl and make an S shape? That's when you want to kind of straighten it out as much as possible. I'll just run this through so you can see what it looks like. And again, I'm looking right in this corner right there. You can even pull that top fabric to make sure. So this takes a little getting used to, especially when you have multiple layers. When you have like 4 or 5 layers, you want to make sure it doesn't curl underneath and get caught underneath the presser foot. All right, so now I've got 3 layers. This is the very first 2 pieces that I started with, and then I added another layer. I could just keep going on and on as many ruffles as I want. But again, make sure you may want to do that top stitching around there to give a nice little added detail. So enjoy your ruffler foot with your Triumph. Many of the, I think all the Babylock sergers do have a ruffler foot attachment that you can get, but really get creative with it and enjoy that ruffler foot.